Welcome back, my friends, and now we're ready to start navigating inside Cinema 4D. What we are going to do now is we're just going to take this object and let's say that we want to rotate around it, all right, but not the object, because we know that we can select the object, we can press R and we can rotate the object, and that's not what I want to do. I want to rotate my camera. I want to see my object from a different angle. So what I can do is press Alt, and then temporarily I'm going to get access to my camera. And now if I press, for example, let's say the right mouse button, I can zoom in and zoom out or make a dolly, all right, so I can get closer to my object or get farther away from it. Now if I press my middle mouse button, I can track. I can go top, bottom, left and right, or right and left, all right, so that's really cool. And if I press my left mouse button, I can rotate around my object. So that is really nice because it allows me to see different portions, different areas, different objects in my scene. So I am navigating inside this scene. Now obviously we have only one object, and what I want to do is first I'm going to take this object, I'm going to press Shift so I can move this and put it exactly what I want to, just like that, 30, 35, so it's straight. Now what I can do is press the number 9 on my keyboard and I get my selection tool and I can move this guy and put it, let's say, in here where the floor is, and that's what I get. And right now I'm pressing Alt, rotating, you know, getting closer and moving, tracking and rotating, tracking, and that's the way of dealing with this. So that's why this is really important. You need to practice this a lot. So now let's create another object. I'm going to create a sphere, and this sphere is going to be a beach ball. So I'm going to put it in here and we're going to change the name of it. We're going to call it beach ball. All right, so that's what we get in here. Now you can see that is right here, and the size radius, let's change it to something like 50, and now segments, I'm going to change them to something like 50 again, so that we can get a nice kind of shape, nice sphere, and I'm going to put it up a little bit. So now I know that, for example, here I'm going to press Control Z. I know that if the radius of this object is 50, so I know that the distance between this and the floor, because it's at the center, is 50. So what I can do is just go to my coordinates, or actually I can press Shift and then I can start moving this object, and you can see 30, 40, 45, 50, and now it's supposed to be at the same level on the floor, right, sitting right next to this object, well, at the floor level. So they are both like that. So that's one way of defining where we want our objects, and there's a lot more, but for now just keep that in mind. Now we have this object and we have this planet. I'm going to change the name of this and let's call this surfing board. All right, surfing board. Now can you see that there's a difference between all these objects? I mean, I am not talking about the shape, but this one, the beach ball, I can hide it, but this one doesn't have that. All right, so that's something that we need to fix. We need to hide this object. Now what you can do is that you see there's a polygon object surfing board, it says in here, and I have this little layer option, and then after that I have some visible parameters or actions. If you double click on this guy, you can hide it, and you can see that now this red dot is red, and if I click once again I make it normal, and then if I click once it becomes green, and then if I click once again it becomes invisible. So that's another way of hiding our objects when working with objects that are already editable. If, for example, I'm going to click once, if I take this object, I press 9 in order to get my selection tool. If I take this object and I make it editable, just clicking here, now you can see that I no longer have access to the check mark. So keep that in mind, please. I'm going to press Control Z in order to undo, and we have these objects. And now I want to create some sort of beach scene where we have you know, objects that kind of represent that kind of thing, that kind of environment. So we have a box, and this box could be a table. So what I can do is create a support for this box. I'm going to take that and let's create a table for, you know, if you want to put your beverages in there, some drinks or things like that. So we're going to put it like this, and let's say that we want it at 1 meter 20, kind of the regular size for these kind of things, and I'm gonna make it a little bit thinner, just like that, and that could be the actual table. Now we need some legs for the table, or a base. So what I'm going to do here is I want to create a cylinder. Now if I click in cylinder, now you can see that I get this object, And now I want to hide the rest of the objects that I am not using. So in this case, I'm going to take the ball, I'm going to hide it like this, and the surfing board, I'm just going to double click on it and it's gone. Now I have this other object, and I know that the size of this is 120. That's what we decide. Well, yeah, 121. But let's just put it 120. And now let's see the object size, which is in the Y is 6. Let's put it 6 centimeters, only like that. And this is actually kind of thin, so I'm gonna take it to 10. Well, probably it's okay. I don't know, just 6 centimeters. Now I know that the distance between the floor and the table now is 120. So I know that I can take this guy and the height could be 120. And I know that that's the height that I need. Now I can reduce the actual radius in this case, and I can do it like this, or just make some kind of base like that, or I can take this value and make it available from here. Now I can actually take this other one and I can make it taller or shorter, just like this. But in this case, because we already know the size, so I can take it to 120, Control Z in order to undo. And now I can go to my coordinates and I can move this object in the actual Y axis. And I'm going to say, okay, move it 60 centimeters. And I know that is going to be right in this region. Now we have a table, but the problem with this table is that it's made by 2 different objects. So what I want is to have only one object, or at least I want to manipulate only one object. I want to be aware of only one of them. Now, if I want to select 2 of these objects, I will have to click, and then if I want to select the other one, I click and the other one gets unselected. But if I press Shift, I can click on this one, then Shift, and I click on this one, and now I can select both of them, and that is really nice. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change the name of this, and this is going to be table base, right? And this one is going to be just table or surface. All right, table surface. So now we have these 2 objects, and if I want them to become one object, I could, make them. I could merge them into one. But right now, what I want to do is use something called hierarchy. So I'm going to take this table surface, and I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be the father of this guy. This guy is going to be its child. So whatever the father does, this guy is going to respond. So I'm going to take the table and I'm going to put it underneath. You can see this arrow that I'm getting. That means that I'm moving this object from this arrangement, and I'm going to place it underneath the table surface. And now this table surface is just one object in terms of selection. So I can move it like this, and it's going to move all together. Now, if I undo this, I'm going to place it on the floor again. You can see that if I unselect that, I can select once, and everything is going to be selected. So that's really nice. Now we can bring our other objects like that. Double click on this option. And you can see that I have the table. I can select the table from here, or I can click in here. I can move it. Oops. I can move it if I select the moving option, just like that. I am selecting the scale option, which is this. So I'm going to get closer. I'm going to place it right in here. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to move it to this point, and the sphere, or this guy, is going to be moved to this region. It doesn't really matter right now. I just want to get this kind of situation. So we have these 3 different objects. Now you know how you can move them and how you can rotate around this area. You know how you can select objects, all right? And you know how you can arrange the actual hierarchy of these objects. Now, another thing that we can do is select objects by just passing by them. And that is if you are using this tool called the live selection. Now, if you use this selection tool, you can just go like that and just paint, and whatever you paint on, you're going to get that selected. Now, you can see here that when you select too many objects, you're going to get different options in here. So that means that you have different parameters for each one of these objects, and that's why we have multiple, this tag that is saying that we have multiple objects. So basically, that's how we can move, rotate, and navigate inside this object, how we can select objects. All of them are going to behave with the same values. If we select the selection tool, they're going to go like that. If we rotate objects, you're going to see that we can rotate the table, and everything is rotating, even though it looks like the cylinder is not doing that. And obviously the sphere is going to do the same thing. So I'm going to press E again in order to get that. Another thing that I want to show you is that, let's say that you are working on a specific object and you are like this, and you want to focus on that specific object. What you can do is press S, and you can go closer to that object, and right away you're going to jump into that specific object. You can select this one, for example, beach ball. Even though it's not here on the scene, I can select it from here, and I can press S, and now it's going to take me right away to that object. So that is really nice. And if I want to go to the table, to the surface, I can go to the surfing board. I can just press S, and now it's going to take me to that specific object. And that is really nice. Now, if you press Control A, you can actually select all of the objects that you have in your scene. So, for example, if I click Control A, if I press Control A, everything is going to be selected, and it's just like the same thing that selecting my live selection tool and painting everything. So remember, you have different options. You can press Shift, click, click, click. You have the option of painting, and you have the option of pressing Control A, and you're going to be able to select everything. And once again, if you press S, you're going to focus on that specific object. Now, the same thing is going to happen here. You can select one object. If you press Shift, you can go all the way to the beach ball, and whatever is in between is going to get selected. So you can see table surface 1, click, and then everything is going to be selected. Now, if I want to, let's say that I want to select only the ball and the table surface. So if that is the case, what I need is to press Control and then click on the other object, Control, so that way I can jump in between objects and just select specific portions of my objects, all right, specific objects inside this objects level. And now I'm going to be able to move them both at the same time. Now, one thing that I want to show you is that you can see that right now I have this table surface, and I call it like that because it's not the table. So this is one portion, and this is another object. And what I want is, if I want, I can take that table base out, and they are now again just the way they were, but I'm going to call another object. And if you go into here, you can see that we have something called a null object. This is just an object that is sitting right now at the center of everything, all right? And this is cool because now I can take my table surface and I can move its position. I'm going to leave it in the y-axis, but for example in the z-axis I want to move it to the center again, and I'm going to do the same thing with the base. So I want to take that and I want to move it to 0. So that's perfect. Now the null, the table surface, and the table base are in the center. So I want to take both of them, Control, click, select them both, and then I'm going to bring them all together inside this null object. Now the null object is going to be the father of both of them, and now this one is the one that is going to become the table. So now this one is the one that is going to get the official name of table. And now I can take this, and it's at the center, and I can move it just like if it was one single object. All right, so that's how we can navigate. You have now another kind of way or structure in order to do things like that, and I will see you in our next class. Thank you very much. Bye bye for now. Take care.